Okay, folks, we might just kick it on there, okay? You're very welcome to this evening's webinar. I'd just like to welcome you all to tonight. I fully appreciate that in the current working world that a lot of you are spending your days looking at a screen and a laptop. So I do really appreciate you coming back on for the webinar tonight. The webinar tonight, as you know, is youth adult hurling and coaching through small-sided games, okay? So for tonight, myself, John Dorn, right, I'm one of the games development officers for Kildare GA. I also play hurling with the Kildare seniors, and I coach in numerous schools and club teams in the development squads. I'll be presenting with Leon Gordon, who's a development officer as well for the county, and he'll be introducing himself there in a couple of minutes. Okay, so just kick it off there with a bit of just a bit of housekeeping right there. If you wouldn't mind just keeping the mics on mute and the webcams off. The reason for that is not that we don't want you asking questions. We want you to ask as many as you can. That's not a problem. It's just the surround sound. If there's a lot of people on or sounds coming, it can interfere with what we're saying and it's hard to hear. If you want to ask any questions, if any of you are familiar with Teams, there should be a little control button at the bottom of your screen there and a little text icon. If you click on that there, you can ask a question into the chat box, and myself or Leon will get to you. We'll see the question and get to you. And what we do, if you want to ask a question across the mics, maybe just put in your name and we'll call you probably more so at the end of the webinar. So we'll get through the material first, and we'll give you as much opportunity as you want throughout at the end of the webinar to ask as many questions as you want. And as I said, if your question comes up in the chat box there, myself or Leon will get to you, okay? So the outcomes of tonight's session is to be able to identify what a small-sided games are and what are the benefits of using them, okay? So we've all heard of them. We might put them into our sessions, but maybe have an understanding of what the benefits actually are. How to use small-sided games, SSGs, to condition your players. So fitness-wise, how do we actually, can we use and how do we use it to condition our players? How to use small-sided games in your training sessions to fix a game problem. So in coaching terms, especially with youth and adult players, how can we take a problem, see a problem, fix a problem using the small-sided games in our training sessions, and why we would do it and the benefits of it, and then how to incorporate small-sided games into your training sessions. So that part there is how to actually build a training session with small-sided games. Okay. All right, so we'll start off there. What are small-sided games? So maybe as I'm calling this out, maybe what I might ask you to do, all right, to give the text box, the chat box there a go. Would you, word or two, couple of words maybe into the chat box, what do you think the benefits are of using small-sided games in training? All right, so if you have a think about it, if your coaches coaching youth or adult players, maybe just bang it into the chat box there. What do you think the benefits that you get out of using small-sided games in your sessions? Just throw it up there into the chat box, all right, as I'm going through this. So what are they? Definition. These games enable players to experience situations that they encounter during actual match play. By experiencing these situations during practice, players are able to improve technical, tactical, and physiological aspects of their game. All right, so that's the definition of what small-sided games are, and I suppose the reasons why we actually use it. So in a practical terms, what is it? Limited numbers and teams. So traditionally our teams would be 15 versus 15. That would be our match. Limited numbers, it could be 8v8, 5v5, 4v3, could be odd numbers, 5v3, but it's limiting the numbers on our teams. The games themselves, right, they're designed to work on specific focus. Okay, so if we go out into a game, 15v15 game, which you might do in training, it's generally the ball is in and we're working. lot of repetition with the players doing that, whatever aspect it is, in a small sided games with lots of involvement on the ball, lots of touches, and lots of decision making. Okay, and that's the beauty of doing it in a small sided game. Whereas if you're to do it and it's replicated in the training, in a 15 versus 15, you could have a player or two players or whatever it may be, you might have a go or something, but it could be minutes before they have a chance to replicate the same move or the same aspect again. So that's the beauty of a small sided game there. It can be in open or refined spaces. So we think of small-sided games. So we're thinking of numbers of players. That's what springs to mind. But generally, we think of a small-sized pitch as well. All right, and I will talk about that in a few minutes as to the advantages in certain aspects of why we use a small-sided pitch. But it can be in an open area as well. And I think that's important to mention in this aspect, especially in a county like Kildare. I know we've a few a lot of people actually from outside the county in it tonight, and you're more than welcome. But in a county like Kildare, where football is quite a prevalent sport, we can sometimes import maybe football and training styles or methods into the hurling, and a lot of the football will be in a small space, hand passing the ball and moving on. Whereas in hurling, we like to at times move the ball as long as possible into the danger zone, up the pitch, or moving the pass up the pitch. So our small sided games can be in a big open area. Now we will talk about that in a few minutes. But in terms of if you want to do a long striking drill in hurling, there's no point in doing it in a small confined space. What you'll end up doing is teaching players bad habits, striking ball 5 yards, 10 yards, when what we're actually trying to get is an open strike down the pitch, that sort of thing. So it's important to mention that, all right?
There's plenty of interaction there in the chat box. I'm watching that as you were talking there, John. A lot of people coming in just saying, create and develop habits, game scenarios, drive engagement from playing, practice our skills in tight situations and under game pressure, try a new skill, conditioning, fundamental movements, more touches. A lot of people come in with Mairead, more movement, Brian Lawler, mimic a game, Ollie, more time in the ball, more touches. So everybody's kind of on the same page already. I'm running after starting the webinar, which is great.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, so we're all on tune there. That's absolutely ideal. Yeah, and I suppose the benefits I've listed here, right? So I can see it already mentioned in the chat box there. Increased participation by all players. So all the players that are involved would generally be active all the time. Even if they get a mini break, the ball is back on top of them, or they're involved. If they don't have the ball, they're involved either in their movement or whatever it may be. I mentioned this earlier on. The second point, greater ability to focus on a specific area of development. Okay, so if there's a specific area you're working on, you can design your game that it'll actually capture that and will call as a repetition in the small sided game that you're doing. More touches of the ball, absolutely. That's mentioned in the chat box there. Bit like the second point, everything reflects what happens in a game and all the skills are performed under game conditions. Okay, so that's important. We could be working on our first touch, we could be working on our striking, but the beauty of a small-sided game is it's replicating what happens. So you're under pressure, be it from an opposition player. If you're doing your striking, there's movement involved, there's opposition. Where if you're doing it in a drill, and we'll come to in a few minutes, it's very, not quite static, but it's rigid, that you know where the ball is going, not necessarily as much pressure, you know what's coming. Whereas in a small-sided game, you maybe perform whatever skill or aspect you're doing, it's replicating the game with the game pressures as well, which is hugely important that our players get used to that and used to performing under those conditions. Decision-making opportunities that aren't present in traditional drills-based training, okay? So that's probably one of the biggest things that why we use small-sided games and the huge benefit of them. As I said, the drills format can be very rigid. You go with A to B to C to perform whatever skill or whatever it may be. But now we're forcing our players to make decisions. Okay, and it can depend on, as I said, if it's a striking drill, obviously our striking game, we're working on our striking technique, our game, but we're striking under pressure. The decision making is where to strike the ball. Even the guys who are receiving the ball, decision, where do I be, where do I move to, how do I get away from my man to present myself. So it's causing a lot of decision makings all the time while we're practicing whatever skills or aspect of the game we're after. Problem solving opportunities for players' development. So as I said, if you're involved in the game, one team could be on the attack, the other team now are trying to figure out where they're going to set themselves up, how they're going to manage the attack. And on the previous 3 attacks, maybe we fell down to this. They had easy access to get through the middle to pass the ball, whatever it may be. And the players now are actively making this or problem solving on the pitch, which is a huge benefit to youth players and to adults. That the game, small sided games provide. The players experience different aspects of the game from multiple positions. That's hugely important. Especially in the modern hurling game, where the game's now gone so fluid that you have players playing often in different positions. They could be your corner backs, and I give the example of Liam Ryan, the Wexford fullback from last year in the All-Ireland semi-final, caught a ball in the full back line and took it himself all the way through the pitch, up to under the Cusack stand and over the bar and shot over the bar. Years gone by. Sorry, guys, there's someone there with the mic on there. Power from India with 100% skin-identical. No, sorry, folks. Yeah, so exposing our players to different aspects of the game, which is a small side of the game, will give them. So if you're used to being a corner forward, or even if it's in the full back line, you have a chance then to be on the attack, to what the support play look like, all the different aspects that playing different positions will give you, and will make you all more rounded players. And I suppose the other great example of that at the moment is Kilkenny goalkeeper Owen Murphy. His game, his all-round game, is phenomenal, and what he brings to the goalkeeping is probably a step ahead of what has been there before. And a lot of the reason for that is he's used to playing his hurling out the pitch with his club, so he's all the different aspects from playing there, and he's bringing it into his own position now. Okay, so just to back that up, so Mickey Whelan, you'd be familiar with, he's Dr. Mickey Whelan, as he is, from DCU and also from Dublin GA. He did a study for his PhD, and he did it now, it was based on youth players, but on small sided games and the benefits of it. So 15 aside versus 7 aside. You can see in the graph on the left there, the touches, it's a third on the 15 aside, it's almost a third of the touches that you get with 7 aside. Okay. And then on the right hand side, if you focus even into the skills aspect of it, in terms of the left is a bit generic in touches, but breaking down to the skills, our catches on 15 aside versus 7 aside, and same with passes, much more in the 7 aside. And if you look at the scoring attempts, it was way down on the 15 aside. Okay, so what's that tell? If you're trying to fix a scoring issue there in a game, I lost the screen there, Leon. There, if you want to bounce it back up.
Yeah, somebody's after
taking over. We'll get it back. But yeah, the point is, I suppose, if in scoring opportunity, if you're trying to rectify a problem with your team scoring, and you go on to a 15-a-side game in training, there is limited. The opportunities for scoring presented that will be limited, so they come every now and then. There could be a break. Whereas if you put into a small-sided game, you can replicate that over and over and over and over again, with all the different aspects of your scoring, be it beating defenders, your movement off the ball, all this aspects to it as well. All right.
There's somebody just sharing the screen there, lads. No, I'll get back up here now.
Apologies, folks. There, just someone came in there and hit the share screen button there, so we'll get this going again now.
It's just loading there now.
Yeah. Ah, lovely. We're back.
I don't think you've controlled this now because it wouldn't load the other way.
No bother. Sure, you can kick it out for me there. It's not a bother. Yeah. I've controlled that again there, Leon. So
Yeah.
all right, we got to go back to where we are. Right, apologies folks for that, all right. So this is just to back it up again. So we're talking there, the last slide was about the size of the team, 7-a-side versus 15-a-side. This is talking about the size of the pitches, all right? So I said earlier on, it can be a refined space or it can be an open space. So, but the study proved here in this, the full-sided pitch, 15-a-side, versus the smaller size with the smaller size pitch with the smaller sized players on teams. Okay, so you can see the graph on the right there, the difference. 15 aside there, the touch is just above 20. On the same side of the pitch with 9 aside, the number of touches drastically improves. And then to reduce the size of the pitch again with the same size team, 9 aside, the touches go up again moderately now. In fairness between that and the 9 aside on the bigger pitch, but it still does increase. Okay, and then on that, then as well on the pitch dimensions, when you actually break it down into specific skills, so your catches, your passes, they go up like we saw on the first slide, which is important. But I suppose the score and attempts, if you look at that, the drastic increase, and it was tying in what I was just saying there before we got knocked off the screen there. On the smaller size pitches, if it's a game that you're trying to work on scoring or anything aspect of that of your attacking, the small sided games would present that much more opportunities to do it. All right, and that's very important for forward coaches there. If you're on the call, on the webinar, and that's a big taken from Mickey Whelan's study there. All right. All right, Leah.
Okay. So I'm going to go through is conditioning and how we can condition our players using small-sided games. This is a very broad topic, so I'm going to try squeeze them in as much as I can. And just start off then. So as we know, like hurling, an unpredictable sport, high-paced sport. As any game we watch, every bout of activity is unpredicted. The next ball in is unpredicted. Every poke out is unpredicted. We just can't simply predict how a game is going to go. So small set of games is going to give us that same environment in a training scenario. So it's high intensity efforts mixed in with low intensity efforts. If we think of our straight line linear drills, that is pretty predictable. So we're only going from point A to point B. It's not much high intensity, very low intensity as well. So we use the small set of games. We can actually replicate a hurling game and also have the physical demands on our players that we would have during a game. So, but when we're thinking of conditions, we're kind of taking our S&C caps on, and we got to think of these elements or factors such as pitch dimensions, player numbers, rules, presence of a goalkeeper, game duration, and then presence of coach encouragement. So all those factors there, they all influence how we're going to condition our players. Every single one of them will have an influence on what we're actually conditioning our players for. So if we want to make them more aerobically fit, getting more sprints into a scenario, every one of those factors are going to influence it. So I'm going to just go through in detail pitch area, the rules, and the player numbers as well. Okay, so then I just have this infographic. So this is from a guy called Jan Lemar. He basically what he does is he breaks down research and then puts it into infographics just like this. So it's very easy to read and understand. So I think some people could have seen a scientific paper, and it could be nearly 16 pages long, and the scientific language is very hard to understand, and you actually won't get the results out of the paper that you actually want. So what he does is breaks it down, all the research, and then puts up the infographic like this, small keywords, and if you follow on Twitter there. So this was on soccer, but I was able to find there's not much research on hurling at the minute, so a lot of it is taken from soccer, but it's very, very relatable. And he found the 6 elements then, like you just said at the start, 6 factors is pitch area, training regime, rules, coach encouragement, and player number, and use of a goalkeeper are 6 adjustable variables that can change what we're actually looking to, what are we trying to physically demand in our players, and what kind of condition we're trying to do with our players. Okay, so the pitch area. So, like John was saying earlier, we can have a 15 on 15 on a normal size pitch, but when we bring the pitch smaller or bring the numbers down, lots more touches. The exact same thing is going to be when we're conditioning our players. So we have the absolute and the relative pitch area. So the absolute pitch area is the actual dimensions of the pitch for players. So like 60 by 20, 80 by 50, that's the actual dimensions of the pitch. And research is showing that medium pitch dimensions is about 60 to 20 are best replicates physical demands of a match play with players. So players cover about 100 meters per minute in that. So that would be a 4-on-4 end zone game. 4 players against 4 on a 60 to 20 meter pitch. That your players are going to experience physical demands just like they experienced during a match. So it's unpredictable. To be high intensity bouts in it and also low intensity bouts as well. What's going to affect our conditioning is the relative pitch area of our players. So this is probably the most important factor of the whole thing when it comes to pitch area. So that's actually the playing area available per player. So if we have, just like the top one there, 60 by 20 with a 4v4, okay, that's going to be kind of a narrow pitch, long pitch, but the space and area the players have to move around in is very, very small. So as we can see there, total distance covered, high speed distance and sprint distance increases when the area per player is increased. So if we increase that 60 by 20 to 80 by 50, that means there's more playing area for that player. So just like it says there, if we want to get more distance in our players' legs, so in pre-season, we want to get more aerobically fit, you'd increase the pitch area so they have more area to work, they have more space to move in as well, so they have to travel more distance. Just to note as well, high speed distance, so that's running over the speed of 17 kilometers an hour. So you want to experience that as well, as most players are going to experience that in a game scenario. Also, accelerations increase as pitch size is reduced. However, large area per player results in more total accelerations. Just like I said there, bigger pitch, smaller numbers is going to do this, increase the acceleration for your players then. But we have to consider what are we going to do every training session you have to have an outcome. So if you want to, like I said, make your players more aerobic fit, you want to have a big enough pitch with small numbers. If you want more accelerations, tighter pitch, more numbers. Okay, so the next thing then is player numbers. So we've often done this, we're all probably doing this in our own training sessions as well. So the numbers we have against each other, whether it's 9v9, 4v4, 5v5, that's all going to have an impact on how we're going to condition our players. So we can have an overload or an underload. So we can have 5v4, 2v3, or we could have an 8v8 or any number, and then we can have a flow on player. He plays with whoever's attacking. So that's going to create more of a condition on our players as well. They're going to have to work harder because they're obviously a man down, and also it's going to replicate a match scenario as well. If somebody gets sent off, you have to know how you're going to have to know how it's going to feel to work that extra harder to replace that player that's gone. So like we have here, small sided game intensity increases with the concurrent reduction in player number and increase in relative pitch area per player. So, like I was saying beforehand, if we increase the pitch area per player and reduce the number of players, the intensity is going to increase as well. And also, small sided games containing fewer players can far exceed match intensity and list similar intensities to long and short interval running. So, our long and short interval HIIT running is high interval training running. So, that's just our traditional running without the ball, straight lines, or grid work. So if we can do this way, this will be adding in the ball so that in a match scenario, they're also getting their touches in is technically hard, tactically as well. They're working on their tactical skills as well. So if we have small players, we could have 2v2s. The match intent, they're going to have witness the intensity of a match. And also they're working on their technical and tactical skills as well at the same time. And also we're getting less and less more buy-in from our players as well. If we always say, we all know if we're doing our traditional run, say mass runs, it's only in a straight line, the eyes start rolling straight away. But if we say we're going to have 4v4 possession game, straight away your players are clicking in. So this can just change the way we can condition our players as well. Okay, so playing rules. So then in our games, then we can have different rules. So we can have a goalkeeper without a goalkeeper. So obviously in hurling, the use of a goalkeeper in a match is highly, highly effective. But what they're going to do is going to reduce the intensity of our small sided game. So if you want to put in a goalkeeper, he's going to poke the ball long. He's able to spread the play more. It's more of a tactical element into it as well. Outfield players aren't going to work with the use of a goalkeeper. If we take away our goalkeepers, then the physical load increases dramatically. Just because they have to work the ball out from the goal, they have to cover more distance as well, and also tactically as well. They have to think more on their feet, and also technical skills build there as well. Then we have ball possession. So if we limit our touches, so you can only have say 3 touches, that means you have to work harder then to get rid of the ball. Your players around you are going to work even harder to make sure they have space for you to receive the ball or to give the ball. And then we have goals. So we have more goals. So we've often had in training sessions using our goals, having 4 goals in a corner, traditional 2 goals, colour goals, and the position they're in, put them in different parts of the pitch. That just makes, if you want to get long distance running, put your goals out in the corners, 4 corners. Players have to run out as fast as they can to get there. So these are all different kind of rules we can do and use to condition our players. Okay, so I just have this table up here now, just as a guideline of what kind of work and rest you'd use when you're training your players. So like I have here, if you want to have some high speed running, or that's your main predominant element of fitness you want to work on, you're looking at a pitch size of 100 by 80, 10v10, and you're only working for a short space of time, and then you're going to have double rest. Okay, so the whole thing is that's a very high intensity game. Your players are going to have to work hard. They're going to get tired very easily, so they need that rest to recover after each small sided game. Even if we just go to the bomb, so even aerobic, an 80 by 20 pitch, 4v4. So that's a pretty big pitch for 4v4. Going for 4 minutes, you're going to have a lot of meters put into the legs. It's going to be a lot of distance running. So that's going to be used then to build their players up, get more fitter as well. And I'd like to stress as well, this is only for guidelines as well. You could very easily have accelerations there. You can have a 50 by 50 pitch, 7 aside, just manipulating what players you have and the space you have as well. So you can have 8v8 on a 60 by 60 pitch either. And as well, for the aerobic, you can change that as well. Make the pitch a bit wider instead of narrow. Make it a bit shorter as well. So like I said, these are just some guidelines that you can use. Okay, so here I have just 4 games, small set games, formats that you could use to condition your players. So in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a 4-goal game. Just like to stress as well, like this is not dimensioned, so we can change the size of our pitches, make them wider, make them longer, add more players. I just have this to show that we can fit 4 different games, or what type of games we can use. So like I have there in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the 4-goal games. So a lot of thinking going on there, a lot of movement has to go on as well, scoring any goal you want. And also, there's no goalkeepers there, so the players have to work the balls down the goals, and they can't score into another goal twice. In the top left, I just have an end zone game. So players are working their ball, say forward and back run. It's almost like a basketball kind of. So trying to you could limit possessions in that game, increase players. You could even have an overload of players in that game, trying to work it into that end zone, then to score, and then the other team have to work the whole way back up again. And then top right, probably the more traditional game a lot of coaches probably have used in the past, having 4 different goals, 4 different colours. So you can only score in the reds, and then if they score in that reds, you can only score into blue. So like I said, you can change dimensions of that, the rules to that. You can even just have the blue team can only score into blue and yellow goals, so you have to work from 1 goal into the far corner, and so on. And then the bottom there, just have an overload game. 2 goals, traditional 2 goals, plus a 3v2 scenario. We can have that any number we wanted. We have a 5v4, 2v4, 6x4, anything we want. Like we said, and that's going to condition the players because they have to work harder because they're man down straight away. There's more meters put in the legs, so you wouldn't be doing long rest and short work in that kind of a game scenario. Okay, so I suppose with small-sided games, there's benefits to use them for conditioning. So like I said it, and John said it at the very start as well, it's going to meet demands of the sport. So like I said, it's just like having a game scenario. We can recreate that in a small-sided game, that intensity and that kind of physical work that they're going to experience during a match scenario, where we're not going to really get that in our traditional mass runs or grid runs as well, or even just traditional conditioning work. It also removes structured conditioning. So like we said, we're really masking our conditioning by our players. They don't really think they're actually doing any fitness work and conditioning work by using small-sided games, because they're actually playing the game itself. Players develop many physical components: aerobic capacity, speed, and agility. So like I said, it's like a match scenario. Like during a match, we're constantly jogging, sprinting, and change direction. So if we can do that in a game scenario, in a training session, they're able to develop many physical components. If we just had our structured conditioning, then we're really working on one physical component. We get more buy-in from players also. So like we said there 2 seconds ago, our players are more inclined to actually enjoy doing this type of training, because it's like I said, it's masked. They don't really know what they're doing condition work, fitness work. They're playing the game, they're training away, but at the end of the day, they're working very, really hard and really developing their fitness. And then we have at the bottom there, developing physical fitness in game scenarios. So like I said, they're developing technical skills, tactical skills, game sense, as on top of developing their physical fitness. Okay, so of course, we can have our benefits with small-sided games, but there has to be their downfalls too. The first one there is players control the intensity. Like I said, if our players aren't working hard enough, then the goal that you had at the start of the session is automatically going to drop. Players aren't feeling it. You're not going to work on what you want to work on. Or also, you might have some players working harder than others, so you're not going to be able to, your whole team is not going to be able to develop their fitness the way you want it either, or the component fitness that you're working on that session. Also, vary fitness levels between players. Like I said, it's not really quantifiable, so if we have a game scenario, your harder working player is going to work even harder than they're supposed to, and your players that don't really work as hard aren't going to work that very hard and they're not going to develop their fitness. So you could be looking at a level playing field. So you have to find a way. How are we going to develop our hardest working players? How are they going to like reduce their load? And then people who don't work that hard, how are we going to make sure they're working on their physical fitness? So like I said, we could use our overload game there. So we can have a 4v2, 4v3, having extremely working hard player on the plus side, so he could be on the team with the 4 or the 5. And then ones that have to work harder, put one the underload, so they have to work even harder. Like I said again as well, difficult to quantify distance covered, intensity, accelerations, deceleration with live feedback. So unfortunately, we haven't got the pleasure of using GPSs, heart rate monitors, so we actually can't quantify the intensity of the game. So like I said, if our players aren't working as hard as we want them to, we mightn't even get to work on that physical fitness component. Also, like I said, we also have to do structured conditioning in our training sessions. So we complement it with our small city games. So we could have one group doing small city game, and then the other group could be doing structured conditioning, mass runs, and then swap in. And then player positions. We have to work on. We have our midfielders. They're going to have a different physical fitness to our full back line. So you should consider that as well. We're not going to have them all doing the same small city game or intensity or timings as well. Okay, so I'm just going to pass it back on to John now.
Yeah, and just something I might add just into that last point, Liam, there is from experience, I've seen the game would have to be specifically designed, and the reason I say that is it's not a case a player mightn't be hitting his fitness target on a small sided game, and it might be that he's not. There's nothing to do with not working hard enough, but his natural style of hurling, it could be something like short sprint and get a ball, deliver a great ball after another 5 yard sprint, and that could be his natural game. So his natural game could be getting in the way of the overall target of conditioning in the game, and it can just be something to bear in mind. So guys, this part here, the next stage of the webinar, okay, so fixing a game problem through small-sided games, it's something that is hugely important when we're coaching. So seeing a problem, fixing the problem, taking our learnings from our matches and putting into training, and how do we actually do it. We spoke earlier on about the benefits of our small-sided games, so can we use small-sided games to address problems that we're seeing on the pitch and to correct them and fix them. All right, so what we've done here, we've taken 3 game problems from real situations that we've come across, be it in youth level and senior intercounty and also senior club. Okay, so they're the three different the problems. So the first one is an intercounty scenario. All right, so what was happening was coming out of defence, our backs are getting held up in possession and are releasing the ball under pressure and are being turned over. Okay, so the questions with the coaches that we always ask, especially when we're designing these games, is what do we want to actually achieve out of this, out of the exercise? How can we fix the problem, and what else can we work on as a secondary? So small-sided games do allow an add-on learning or option to have a go at correcting something else as well, or correcting another skill, or even just putting into practice another concept. Okay, so what do we want to achieve in this? So we want to put the players into a scenario that is replicating where they fell down, to use a certain phrase, in the game, and then put them to where they can come up with solutions themselves and put it into practice. How can we fix the problem? Well, that's the game I'm going to describe next. Okay, so a very basic game. What you have here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 players out the pitch, and what you have is a gatekeeper there on the side, on the end line. So to address the problem from before, so one of the solutions that might have been proposed by the management, was that at all times, and it doesn't matter where on the pitch, that if the ball goes into a huddle or into a group of players pick up possession, that we will always have someone, it's in essence in the pocket behind as an option. So if the advance isn't working at the moment, we'll always have someone who will be in the pocket. So how this game works is the coach there in the middle with the ball, he throws it in to start it off. Whatever team wins possession, just say for the argument's sake, the Reds, they've got to play the ball back to the gatekeeper on their own end line, who has freedom to move up and down the line. And once he gets it, then he sets up the play. So the ball's going back to him, just like in the game. The ball's after getting caught, potentially in a ruck. a cornerback is after moving out, offers the back pocket option to a centre back or a wing back. The cornerback has the ball now, and he's scanning his options. The players out the pitch now are starting to move into space, drawing their men with them, creating space, whatever it may be, making themselves open for the ball, and the game goes on. And as that game goes on, just if the Blues are to overturn them, intercept a tackle or whatever it may be, they've got to move the ball back to their gatekeeper, who then repeats the exercise and so on. So a highly intense game, replicating what's going on in the match. And I said it could happen in any part of the pitch. It could be our wing forward is on the way up, gets held up in possession, has an option of a midfielder or a wing back coming up behind him, and then it sets up the player, has a shot himself. Okay, so our players are learning to make themselves available, also not to rush to the man with the ball. Okay, and I'll take that on another step forward. This little graphic goes up for us. The internet isn't being kind to us tonight. So we might move it on anyway to the next one there, because we're conscious we lost a bit of time. Problem 2, okay? The last one there was just, it was graphics like what Leon had earlier on, so it was actually showing the players moving in different positions. So as the players are on the attack, you could see how the players are moving away, drawing men to them, attacking the far end line with a man in support as well, creating all the different angles, and you could see how the opposition were trying to cover it as well. So lots of decision making involved, lots of movement, constantly using the man in the pocket. And as the game even progressed, you could see one of the players moving in the pocket again within the game itself. So it was an add-on as well, right? So problem 2, okay, so this is from a youth. It was actually from the development squad, an issue that came up, okay? So when the team is trying to move the ball, they are slow to make the decision on the intended target, and the ball moves slower up the pitch, often going from line to line. I mentioned earlier on that sometimes we incorporate drills from football in a county like Kildare, where football is a dominant. It was one of the dominant sports. Okay, well, this is something that we would often see in the squads, where the ball ends up moving line to line to line, and it's quite slow. Or the options when they're looking down the pitch, the decision isn't quite there. So we wanted to come up with a game that would we could put the players under pressure and get them to achieve this. Achieve this under match scenarios. All right, so what one of the drills was, so this is a full-size pitch. I mentioned earlier on, it doesn't have to always be in a confined spot. So what you have here, we'll start with the Blues there on the right. So you have 2 on the left, maybe your full backline position, just saying that sort of distance what I'm talking about. Then you have 2 on further up across the pitch on the right, half back midfield position. Diagonally across again, you have your 2 more Blues in the half-forward line position midfield, and then up in the corner there you have your corner forward type position. All right, and essentially, if you stick with the Blues again, you see the goalkeeper's numerous balls there. The goalie has the option of either hitting it to one of his cornerbacks, or he can hit it to his wing back. And the idea is to this: if we move the ball as fast as we can up the pitch to our players, we can skip a line if we have to, and we want to score as many points as we can. The Reds are going at the same time, trying to achieve the exact same thing. And that's the pressure. There's lots of movement going on with Reds and Blues. Players have the ball. They're not an option anymore, obviously, so we have to find another option. We can cross the ball. If we need to strike it, we can run the ball if needs be to the next line and hand pass it off to them, and make our way back then and look for another ball from the goalie. We have lots of decision making where the ball is going to go. You have communicating, talking to the players around you, talking to the goalie directing operations as well. And you're trying to beat the other team in the score. And that would be the first version of the game. And then what you can do then, as the players are in pairs, one of the pairs could act as an interceptor now. So the team who are coming up against you, so if the Reds are attacking from left to right, the Blues ahead of them could potentially try and intercept the ball, which is another dimension added into this game, which is making more realistic to the game scenario as well. You could bring in that the Reds or the opposition are allowed tackling now as well, which is another element. So you're bringing in a solution to a problem that they had in the game of moving the ball at speed, quickening up the decisions of their options, your intended target of the passes. So you're bringing all that into a game scenario. As the graphics from earlier on showed, that the bigger the pitches, the less touch they're going to be involved. But to counter that in a game like this, you can see the amount of balls that the goalies have. So literally the goalie gives out a ball and the next ball it's on its way, and then the next ball it's on its way. And because the team coming down are shooting, there's a constant feed of balls coming in. So the exercise can keep rolling on, and that can work on. You can bring it into your conditioning again. There's plenty of opportunity for short sprinting, for longer distance sprinting, or whatever, maybe with a bit of rest in between. And that's just the game, how to fix that particular problem in that we were finding in numerous games that the lads are playing. Okay, so the problem 3, this was a club issue. Okay, so when looking back at the analysis, it was clear that a lot of the times we were turned over was when the ball broke after delivery. Okay, we either arrived at the break at the wrong time or unable to secure possession after the ruck. Okay, so again, our coaching questions that we always ask ourselves when we're designing the game: what do we want to achieve? What's the outcome that we want? How can we actually fix the problem? And what secondaries could be incorporated into the game as well, all right? So this is a simple game. There's lots of different types of versions of it. So to talk to this game, our problem is winning the ball after delivery, was breaking down basically on a breaking ball and then maintaining possession after a ruck. So just to pick 2 of the squares here, we'll go from A to C. Is one area. Now B to D will be working at the same time, so they wouldn't be resting. So basically what happens here, the ball is struck from the centre of C up into the square A, all right? The red and the blue contest for possession, and the red and the blue on the outside can only enter the square as the ball is making contact with either red or blue inside. They join the possession or join the game, and then when whatever team wins the ball, they have to get outside the square and score a point. Okay, the work on there is our timing, getting in. If the ball breaks down, it's a decision to make. Do I rush in to get the ball? Do I make a call, get the ball moved out to the side? No, I'm in space. My teammate can make a move, can pass on the ball. And the add-on there, the secondary that we're working on, it could be our shooting. All right, so we brought in a couple of concepts there. We've broken it down, so the ball lands in the square, there's only 2 underneath it and 2 more coming in. You could change that so that when the ball leaves C and goes into A, two players from C could join A as well. So now we're increasing the players, increasing the options, potentially increasing the difficulty involved, and that's a game that we use to fix that particular problem. Okay, so a lot of things going on, a lot of decisions. We were replicating the match intensity, which is the goal of the small sided games, and a lot of decisions involved in there as well. All right. Okay, so before Liam kicks into that, that's just a couple of examples. Okay, so what we were conscious of, we didn't want to produce a webinar where it's just drill after drill after drill, and there's not as many learnings from it. Okay, so there's just a couple of concepts of how we can take actual live or real life problems that came up in games and how we actually would incorporate the solution through a small sided game and the benefits of it. All right, so that's what we were trying to get across there, right, Andy?
Yeah. Just like John was saying there, like there are 3 problems, but like we have many problems from a game, and the main thing is that you have some outcome in your sessions, and you actually try and fix that in a session. Whereas if we have an actual problem in the game, and then go into our next training session, and all we do is striking in pairs, for 20 minutes, then we do straight into a match. We're not really going to fix our problem in the game. It's just going to lead into the next game again. Okay, so then what I'm going to start here is just building our session using the small set game. So like more or less how are we going to bring, if we have a problem in a game, how are we actually going to develop and fix that through our training sessions. So we have a warm-up, a game-based activity, fix a skill, and then back into a game match activity. So this will be the kind of format that you use in your session when you're designing your session plan. Have your warm-up at the start of the session, about 15 minutes. Then a game-based activity. So your outcome before you even start the session, you should have an outcome of your session. That should be your game-based activity then. Then you fix your skill. So what kind of skill you think is breaking down or what you need to be fixed and what's the outcome of that session as well. So it could be just striking or even first touch. And then you're backed into a game, an activity. Okay, and just before we move on, we just touch on this very, very slightly because it's the Torres principles. There's been a lot Torres webinars been done all across the county, all across Leinster over the last few weeks, and a lot of game staff have been doing them with coaches and clubs. And the main thing when we're going into our training sessions, that we do have these TERS principles in mind. So TERS is the Leinster GAA Player Pathway. It was developed there just about 2 years ago, and it's been distributed all across Leinster over the last few years, and we've been delivering webinars on it. And the main thing is about this is that we have a kind of a pathway that we know how our players should be following. The principles is TERS is TERS. So we just there when we're designing our training sessions, they're the 5 things we should be having in mind: testing, challenging our players, understanding our players the centre of the game, that our training sessions are resembling the game, our players are always involved all the time. Obviously, we can't have our players involved all the time, but as much of the time as we can, and then also should also be enjoyable, developmentally appropriate, and to provide a holistic GAA experience. Okay. So the best way to go when we're training a team is when we're starting off our warm-up, you start off with some sort of skill-based activity. So we have a grid format there, 13 by 13 grid. Players move around the grid, getting their heart rates up, striking, hand passing, jab lifts, high catch. So straight away you're getting in your technical development at the start of your session. Okay. After that then is going to be your GAA 15 warm-up protocol. So GAA 15 is a warm-up protocol that was designed by the GAA, and it's been proven to reduce injuries in players. This warm-up protocol is out on YouTube, I'm very sure. And also, games development staff have delivered this workshop on how to do the GAA 15 with your team. So this is basically, that's out there straight away. You don't even have to think about doing that. It's literally a protocol. You follow that with your players. You're going to reduce the chance of injury with your players straight away. And you just follow from A to B the whole way down with your players. It has developing your strength work, speed work, and also your stretching as well. When you finish the GAA 15 warm-up, then you should probably finish off with a game-related activity. So about 2 or 3 minutes of game. It's like we have it up there. Just a four-goal game, like we said at the start, 4 different colour goals. Just getting your team switched on, get into game mode, open the intensity, more change direction as well. So you only be doing that for about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so that probably about 15-20 minutes of your session. So like I said at the start, you want to have an outcome of your session. So at the start of your session, say our game problem was our striking wasn't too good in our last game. So your first game-based activity should be based around that, how to work on your striking or picking out your to strike on. So like I said, many types of game-based activities, conditioning games, 3 strike and a catch equal a score. So straight away, like I said, that's going to work on your striking, and that's what we're going to try work on for the session. Possession games, different goal sizes, number, colour, small sided game, 3v3s, 5v5s. So you always just got to make sure that you have an outcome before your session starts, instead of just having any game-based activity when you have no real end goal in sight or what you want to try to develop. So then you break it down, and we're going to fix the skill. So when we're doing our training sessions, there's still a place for doing our drills to fix our skills and develop our skills. Because hurling is a very skillful, lot of skills in hurling. So we need to actually break it down, because we're not going to be able to work it, define it down into our small set of games as much. So we actually need to dumb it down and actually do our drills. So just like you even have there, the first box is going around the cone, striking it back to the player, or the second one, man in the middle, 2 balls in the air, just striking over and back. That's working on striking again straight away. So we actually have to break it down. We're going to fix that skill. So like we said, if our outcome at the start of the session is to improve our striking, our game-based activity should be bringing that in. Then we actually break down the skill in a closed environment where the player doesn't have much thinking to do. They have more time to relax, more time to actually refine their skill, practice that without any hesitation. At the end of that, then you want to finish off your training session with a game or a match, but you should still be focusing on the session outcomes. So this can be your small sided game, all like the games we said at the start of the session, end zone games. You can have a traditional 2 goals game, but smaller. Could be 8v8, 6v6, focus on your striking. You could have like we said, you can still add in 3 strikes equals a score, also including your scores over the bar, back of the net as well. So when you're starting off your session, from the start of the session, you should have an outcome that you're working on a specific element of your game plan, or a problem that's been happening in a game, or even a skill that's been breaking down in training sessions or in a match. Start off with your warm up, then work into your game based activity. Like I said, make sure it's the same thing. Fix that skill, then break it down. Actually go around, coach the skill, help players. There's not much pressure on them either. It's a closed environment, so it's just striking from A to B, and then back into a game. Then so they're bringing that into a game scenario, and they're going to improve after that. So here then is just a sample session plan that we have. This is just a sample that I would usually use. So we start off the session with a warm up. It'd be typically kind of a session that I use with development squads. So working on our speed and acceleration, sprint mechanics. But then, as we see here, that's kind of including. Then I have the condition focus. This would be kind of a pre-season plan. Our aerobic small-sided game, 4v4 end zone game pitch, 1-to-1 work ratio. So working for 4 minutes, and you're just going to do that twice. So we're using our small-sided game as a start for fitness, and then also work on our skill. So the skill I have in this is striking, like at the start. So when you're conditioning, you're making sure you're getting long strikes in, short strikes in into that game as well. And then your skill development is striking, 2 players, 4 meters apart, 1 person in the middle. And the middle is working. He's just striking out and back. So that's where the player actually gets to work on their skill. Intensity is nice and low, concentrating on the strikes, not really worried about anything else. And then every player then back into a game at the very end, 10v10, 100 by 80, goal in each corner, teams can score at any goal, and you can't score the same goal twice. So by not working or scoring in 2 goals twice, you have to strike the ball to another goal, or play is spreading out more. So like I said, same outcome has been driven the whole way through the whole session. Okay, so we're just coming up to the end of the webinar now. You've not had, before we move on, John, no? On the session?
Just a small little one there. It's just, I suppose you mentioned earlier on the disadvantages maybe of elements of the condition. There is a small, if you want to call it, disadvantage to small-sided games, that if we talk about, drills have a bit of a bad rep, but they can be very useful for the constant repetition of an individual skill without external factors. So if you want to zone in on something and just constantly repeat it, they can be very useful. But the disadvantage, I suppose, of a small-sided game, if you're trying to concentrate on a specific skill, external factors can have a big bearing on it, and also a player's ability. So if we're trying to work on maybe first touch, but a player is extremely big and strong, his physical attributes could get by that. So if he takes a bad touch, he might still be able to win the ball and hold someone else off and bustle through. So his first touch is naturally be necessarily worked on. He's relying on his strength. So there is slight disadvantages at times, or a downside to small side of games that, like that in that scenario, a drill, the constant repeating of a first touch over and over again would give you. But it's just important to mention as well, and I suppose then we're talking about replicating matches as well. We obviously do. We're going to play our game on Sunday in the championship, whatever it may be, 15 versus 15. So at different stages, obviously, you have to go into 15 versus 15. It's just to replicate exactly what goes on in a match. So it's just important to mention as well there that that we're not advocating all the one over the other, but it's I think you see from the reasons earlier on the benefits of what we're talking about from small-sided games.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so just to finish up, we're nearly finished there now. So just at the start of the session, this is just our outcomes we're going to revisit. So at the start of the session, we said we'd be able to identify what small-sided games are and their benefits. So hopefully by now, we could kind of be able to list out any benefits that we know what small-sided games are used for, and what they are, how to use small-sided games to condition our players. Like we said, there's a lot of elements in there that we can use, like changing our pitch size, pitch numbers, using goal goalkeepers. So there's loads of elements that we can actually use to condition our players to small city games. And then we had how we can use small city games in your training sessions to fix the game problem. Like we said, taking that game problem, bringing it straight to the training pitch and fixing it there. And then how will we incorporate into our training sessions? Okay. So if anybody has any questions, you can type them into the chat on the side just as I'm finishing off, and we'll try and answer the best we can. That's myself and John's contact details after today's session. If there's something that you want to ask us, or there's any queries about the webinar itself, or anything related to training, or anything you want, just drop us an email, and we'll be more than happy to get back to you. And also on Twitter as well, we have most time any webinars we're running, that's where we're advertising most of our webinars.
Yeah, just see there, Leon, there's Garrett has a question there. So, will small-sided games be as effective for players in the 9 to 11 year bracket, or from what age is small-sided games be useful? I would recommend small-sided games is extremely useful for all ages, from the time they come in after nursery. Even in nursery, if doing the small-sided games, it incorporates all the different elements of hurling, and they get to perform the individual skills. But what I would say, especially at an underage in the child scenario, is just make sure that the skills are being performed as well. So we just don't rely on the small-sided games. Now, I would base the session around them, absolutely, but just don't forget to put them into the skills as well. All right, so that we can spot them down, spot the skills and how they're being performed in an isolated environment as well. But absolutely, it would be hugely effective for a 9 to 11-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're training to play the game. So at the end of the day, our small side, like we said at the start, our small sided games are going to replicate the game itself. So at any age, really, it's going to help and develop our players the best we can, and they're always going to be prepared to play their matches then. But like we said, hurling, yeah, we need to refine those skills, break down the skills for the kids. So just like we had the session plan there, the best way to go about it is nearly the exact same thing used for kids. Warm up can be a fun game, chasing games, a little small game, then you break down your skill and you finish off a match as well. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Garrett.
Yeah. And if you do want to read up, and as I said, Leon mentioned, there's not much in terms of hurling research, but whatever research they have done, especially in soccer and rugby, there's a greater learning from transfer, should I say, from if they perform skills in small-sided games, to actually transferring into the game scenario then at the weekend. The studies, especially in soccer, have proved that. So look, guys, if there's no other questions there, we might wrap it up there. What I would just like to say there is apologies again for that little gap in the middle there, the bit of a technical difficulty with the screen. Thanks very much for sticking with us and staying on. And I suppose just for myself, thanks very much again for logging on tonight. If you have any questions, feel free. Leon shared the information there earlier on, so of our contact details, and we can find them anywhere through Kildare GA. So feel free at any stage to give us a shout or a call. So thanks very much again.
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks for logging on. Thank you.